Welcome to a very special Eric Bolling, The Balance, folks, and a very rare, in fact, it hasn't happened in many months. We have an exclusive one-on-one sit-down with the man who some say may be the next president of these United States, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Now, many of you know I have a long-term personal relationship with the former president, Donald Trump. That remains solid as far as one can know. However, I am on record as saying both Trump and DeSantis would beat a beleaguered, downtrodden, and highly unsuccessful President Biden. I, for one, would love to see both of these guys on the 2024 ticket. That said, when Governor DeSantis agreed to an interview, he specified me this show for his exclusive Newsmax appearance. We appreciate that. Obviously, I was quick to make sure I brought that to you. With that in mind, let's now bring in Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. He's the author of The Courage to Be Free. Governor, I appreciate you picking this. An honor to have this sit down with you, sir. So let's do this way. The elephant in the room, sir, Governor Ron DeSantis, are you running for president in 2024?
I am in the middle of a legislative session. We've got a lot of great stuff. You're going to hear a lot. Maybe I can come back on your show and talk about a lot of the wins. So we're going to be doing that over the next few months, and that's going to be my focus. And we get on the other side of that, we'll see what happens, and we'll be happy to let you know either way.
Well, you're certainly welcome. We'd love you to do it here. And what would be some of the mitigating or aggregating factors on your decision? Or is it you've decided already and it's just not the time to announce yet? Which one is it?
No, look, I think that at the end of the day, we've been able to have a recipe for success in Florida. As you know, when I got elected, our state was a one-point state, basically, for the previous 10 years in the presidential governor's races. I came in and we basically said, we're going to throw caution to the wind. We're going to be bold. We're going to pursue our agenda. Not going to follow polls. We're going to lead. And we tackled a lot of issues. Of course, we had to tackle COVID, but also so many other things, Disney, all these other education issues. And we ended up winning by almost 20 points, and we won majority, 60% plus of Hispanics. We won by 18% amongst independents. And so I think that what we showed is problematic as our country has been over the last couple years. Seems like all these guys get these things wrong. If you have the right principles and you have the ability to lead and you're willing to show the courage to do it, you can achieve good things. We've done that in Florida. People have responded. So we're proud of that. That's part of the reason why I wrote the book, regardless of, any type of higher office. I do think it's a blueprint for other states to follow. And what we've had happen, Eric, I think since in the last couple of years in particular, we really have a nice competition amongst the states. You look at some of the things we've done. You look at Iowa with Governor Reynolds. She's doing that. Sometimes she'll do things, and we've got to follow. So I think that's really healthy. And I think, and you're one of the people that have moved here, people are leaving the left-wing states, and they're moving to red states. Florida is obviously #1 for migration, but these other states are drawing population too. People are voting with their feet about how they want to live.
Governor, one of the common refrains down here in Florida, very red. They're a pro-Trump country. They're a pro-Ron DeSantis country down here. A lot of people from Florida love the successes you've had and given them in Florida, and now me in Florida as a resident. And they're worried about losing you as a governor if you do, in fact, run for president. Are they going to lose you?
Well, we have term limits for governor, Eric. So in 2026, one way or another, there'll be 2 candidates running, and I will not be one of those. That's just the nature of it. So it's all good. But I think what we've been able to do is really set things, not just have superficial policy victories, but have victories that are going to really change. I think we've realigned the foundations of the state of Florida. The old establishment is dead, and we've really created a new sheriff in town. And I think that's going to be really taking us far beyond me and probably into the next decade and beyond.
So you mentioned a big word there, and something I really wanted to spend some time on, the establishment. There are those, some people we both know, who are trying to paint you as an establishment type, a rhino, so to speak, type. How do you respond to people who are pushing you in that camp?
Other than laughing at it, I mean, all people have to do is just open their eyes. There hasn't been a bolder governor in the country. I mean, who was taking on the establishment during COVID? Me. Everything we did in Florida from April of 2020 to the present, I did against people like Fauci, the corporate media, a lot of the other entrenched bureaucracies, and we made sure that the state was able to thrive. I was pilloried for those decisions at the time, but now you look and see how well Florida has done. We also last year had a bill to make sure we were protecting the rights of parents to be able to send their kids to school without having things like gender ideology shoved down their throat. You should not be telling a kid in school that they may have been born in the wrong body. Well, some people didn't like that, including the strongest, most powerful corporation in the history of Florida, Walt Disney. And so they came out against it, tried to kill the bill, tried to get me to veto it. I rejected that, signed the bill. And not only that, we said, you know, you have this special deal in the state of Florida. That doesn't work for us anymore. So we then signed legislation to end Disney's self-governing status in Florida, which nobody would have thought possible. So we've basically reoriented the state. We've realigned the state. And I don't think there's any significant issue that we've not only gotten ahead of, not only taken on, but the important thing is, you know, we're winning on these issues and we're delivering huge victories.
Yeah, and people love it. People absolutely adore it, not only in Florida, but across the country. Conservatives love what you're doing here. President Trump wasn't indicted today. The thought was maybe it was going to be an indictment handed down. Looks like now no decision will be made until next week. What are your thoughts on this whole process of indicting the former president? And if he is indicted, should the public protest?
So I think that this guy Bragg is the Manhattan DA. He's a Soros-funded prosecutor, and he's not alone in the country. We've seen an epidemic of these guys. I actually removed one from Tampa because he said he wasn't going to enforce some of Florida statutes, and so we removed him, which I think was appropriate. But what these guys do is they get into office, and it's not about the rule of law. It's not about equal justice under law. It's about weaponizing the prosecutorial power to advance their agenda. And so absolutely, they will use that power to excuse crimes, which Bragg does on a daily basis, while then trying to use that same power to go after people based on selective prosecution and political grounds. So, you know, I don't know what's going to happen. There's been a lot of speculation about it, but I think weaponizing the prosecutorial power of government to be able to go after opposing politicians or people you don't like is fundamentally wrong. And these Soros DAs are really at the forefront of doing that. Should people publicly protest, and to what extent? I think that's up to individuals. I mean, the one thing I will say that we've seen just in recent history, if you're in a really deep blue jurisdiction like Washington, D.C., perhaps Manhattan, you know, and you're somebody that's kind of on our side of the fence politically, you're going to be treated more harshly than people that are on the other side politically. I think that there's a separate standard of justice, and so people should just be mindful of that. It's sad that you have to say it, but I absolutely think that that's been proven to be the case over these last many years.
Here's a question. I'm not sure you've been asked this, and I would ask the former president the same thing. If he tapped you to be his vice president, if he were the nominee, since you haven't thrown your hat in the ring yet, would you be willing to serve as vice president with Donald Trump? I think I'm probably, you know, more of an executive guy. I mean, I think that you want to be able to do things. That's part of the reason I got into this job, is because we have action. We're able to make things happen, and I think that's probably what I'm best suited for. Would you? Oh, look, in 2016, Trump ran for president. So did Lindsey Graham, so did Rand Paul, so did so many, so did Mike Pence. Trump tapped Pence. Would you, if you got the nomination, consider Donald Trump as a VP? Oh, I think that's it's interesting speculation. But, you know, I think that just beyond that, I do think, though, you know, we are in a difficult situation in this country because the left,
I mean, just think when Biden got in, if they had 2 or 3 more Democrat senators, what they were going to do, they were going to eliminate the Electoral College, they were going to mandate ballot harvesting and eliminate voter ID across the country, and they were going to do things like make D.C. a state with like 52 senators. And so I think the whole party, regardless of any personalities or individuals, you got to be looking at 2024 and saying, you know, if the Biden regime continues and they're able to pick up, 10, 15 seats in the House and a Senate seat or 2, this country is going to be in really, really bad shape.
No doubt. No doubt. Governor, Ukraine, it seems to be the kind of the third rail for some reason on the right now. And some said that you've changed your position on it. But in your words, what would be your Ukraine? What's the right Ukraine policy? And by the way, just of note, Liz Cheney, Rhino, a former Republican in name only, Congresswoman, said you were weak for changing your position on it. And Lindsey Graham, Senator Graham, took a shot at you as well for your new position on it. So where is it? Where should it be? And where should we be as a country?
So I never changed anything. They're talking about when President Trump was in, weapons were sent when I was in Congress and I supported, but that was to deter Russia from invading. And you know what? They didn't invade for many years. And that only broke down when Biden got in. And I think there's a variety of reasons for that, but I think part of the reason was the failure in Afghanistan. I think Putin believed he could get away with more because he saw how weak Biden was. That's a much different situation than now being in a situation where you have Ukraine and Russia fighting over kind of the borderlands there in the far eastern part of Ukraine and over places like Crimea. And my position on that is, I care more about securing our own border in the United States than I do about the Russia-Ukraine border. And it seems like the establishment, some of the people that you mentioned, they ignore the problems that we have here at home as Americans. The border is one that is costing American lives. It's also allowing people coming in from communist China, people from the Middle East. There's suspected terrorists that have come in, and that's just being allowed to happen without any of these people batting an eye. You also have to ask if they're constantly talking about this being as something that we have to have an open-ended blank check policy for. You want to weaken Putin? Why don't you permit more gas pipelines here in the United States? Why aren't we drilling for more oil here in the United States? I mean, I think that would really do more to weaken him than anything these folks are cooking up. And then I also think you have to look at, if you're sending all this stuff over, for what's essentially a stalemate in those areas, what is that doing to our current weapons stockpiles here in the United States? And the fact of the matter is they're declining. And so that impacts our ability to respond to threats other places in the world. My view in terms of U.S. national security is that our #1 threat by far is China and the CCP. They're strong militarily, they're strong economically, they've got the largest industrial base in human history, and they have ambitions, and their interests conflict with ours. So I think some of those folks are not really supporting a stronger America. They're weakening us here at home, and they're making it more difficult for us to be able to do things like check the influence of China abroad.
Would you or should we, let's put it this way, would you or should we check China if they were to have aspirations to take Taiwan back into China? Should we support Taiwan militarily, kinetically, or just humanitarily?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, I think that clearly there's been, over the years, where Taiwan has received military equipment from the United States so that they can defend themselves, and I think that that's appropriate. But I think the ideal situation is you have an America that has a strong defense. You have good relations with our allies in the region, particularly Japan, South Korea, Australia, and India. And what you end up having is the ability to deter China from even taking that step. And I don't know that we're in a position under Biden where that deterrence is really strong, but I think it could be. And I think that's really the way you got to think about it. But, China's ambitions are larger than just Taiwan. They have conflict with Japan. They want to have more influence all throughout the Pacific. And actually, in our hemisphere, they're much more involved than they were 20 years ago. And that's a problem.
Governor, back to your successes here in Florida, and a lot of, to be honest with you, the people on the left are definitely afraid of you running against their guy, Biden. Whoopi Goldberg today had this to say about you running on a national level.
Here's the bottom line. People know what's going on. You can hide it, you can put it down, you can do whatever. So, dude, you're not ready for America.
He's not ready for the national
You're not
stage.
ready for this country yet, because you haven't learned that we are a diverse nation. So you can run if you want to, but I ain't voting for you.
So, dude, or should I say, Governor, respond to Whoopi Goldberg?
Wow, well, Whoopi should come to Florida. We're a pretty doggone diverse state here. In fact, a lot of people will say Florida's a microcosm of America. And yes, it's not just because we have a large Hispanic population. You know, we've got a pretty significant African-American population. We have people that move to Florida from all across the country. So, I mean, you know, in your neck of the woods, you got a lot of people that come from the New York City area. If you go to the west coast of Florida, you got like the Midwest down there. In March in Florida, you think you're in Wisconsin when you're in Naples with the number of people that come down. So people do that. So I don't think there's a place in this country that is more diverse across the board than the state of Florida. And yet, you know, we were able to win it by over 1.5 million votes. So people can squawk and kind of be in their little bubble and try to, you know, further their own little narratives. But the reality is, I think Florida's doing it well. And you know what? People are by and large happy with the direction of the state across all these demographics.
Governor, they say "Make America Florida Again" down here. I'm not sure they're wrong, sir. They're trying to rat me, but I have to ask you, the relationship with Casey, your wife, your beautiful family. It's so aspirational and beautiful, just beautiful. How is Casey doing? It's just so great to see someone so supportive of a couple of each other.
Eric, thanks for asking. She couldn't be better. I think, as most of your viewers know, she went through breast cancer in 2021 and 2022. We had our second inauguration in January, and we did a family photo that was the same pose we did in January 2019 for the first term. And even though during the first term she had another child, she dealt with the whole COVID mania that we all had to deal with. She has a bunch of initiatives. She battled breast cancer and beat it. You look at her now in 2023, she's prettier today than she was 4 years ago. I don't know how she pulls that off, but all I can tell you is I'm a lucky guy, because she's a great wife, a great mother, and she's been a heck of a first lady for the state of Florida.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, Governor. Best to her, best to your kids. And you got a dog? You have a dog?
You know, it's interesting. Our 2-year-old is about to turn 3. That's all she wants is a doggy. And so what we're trying to figure out is we need to be here you got to give the dog attention. So that's what we're going to work on doing, to figure out if we can make sure that the dogs get the adequate attention.
All right. We got to go, sir, and really, really appreciate your time, Governor Ron DeSantis. Again, newest constituent, or one of the newest constituents. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Eric. Bye-bye.